He is laying here.
How old is he?
Starting to go unconscious.
How old is he?
High school age, so maybe 15, 16, 17.
Okay. Is he awake?
No, he's going unconscious.
Okay. Is he breathing?
Not right now.
Breathing.
No, he's not.
He's not breathing at all?
No.
Okay. Where was he stabbed at?
In his chest.
Okay. I've got them coming, okay? Stay on the phone with me, all right?
Okay.
Is the assailant still nearby?
Okay. I'm here.
Is the assailant still nearby?
Stay with me, Austin!
Hey,
Is he breathing? Yes, ma'am.
is the assailant still nearby?
He put his hands on me! I told him not to! He put his hands on me!
In this case, you have the killer admitting, I'm the killer. You have the killer admitting, I was not justified because I met undeadly force with deadly force. He put his hands on me. Putting your hands on me doesn't give me the right to stab you. That is meeting undeadly force with deadly force. When you see the video of this man running away, this young man running away, that is consciousness of guilt. When you hear him saying, no, I'm not the alleged killer, I am the killer. It just leaves you thinking, yes, the human tragedy, how this was so unnecessary, but from a legal standpoint, my God, whether it was $6 million or $600,000 in a GoFundMe account, this case should have never gone to trial.
First of all, he's going to be in prison for a very long time. I think if you speak to attorneys in that jurisdiction, they don't see him getting out before 20 years. Now, I think there was a number of considerations the jury had here. One, the circumstances surrounding the stabbing, his age. But at the end of the day, this was a murder. And while there were those who thought that it should be less, there were others who thought that this should be more. There's no concrete test. There's no scientific test by which the jury has to go when you look at up to 99 years. I think that this is going to be a really difficult moment for him. I think this is going to be a very difficult life for him behind bars. I mean, let's be clear. He took someone else's life. That family's never going to have Austin there. But his life is also gone. I mean, his life is never going to be the same. And it's interesting. The one thing I'll add is, and I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but hearing his voice, I've never heard him speak before, and I've never heard him cry before. I don't know if that would have had an effect if he took the stand and tried to make his case and tried to say what he was feeling. But this is why you see people, in self-defense cases, take the stand and try to explain it.
This case should have never gone to trial.
Anthony sat down under a tent that belonged to Memorial High School's team, not his own school. Metcalf, along with others nearby, told him to leave. What started as a request to move escalated within moments into a physical confrontation. By the end of it, Anthony had stabbed Metcalf once in the chest. Metcalf was rushed to a hospital. He didn't survive. A 17-year-old was dead. Another 17-year-old was about to be arrested for killing him. And the only thing anyone agreed on, in the chaos that followed, was that none of it needed to happen. If you want to understand how a disagreement over a folding chair turned into and drew national attention, stick around. We're going to walk through exactly how investigators built their case, piece by piece. But this isn't where it started. This is where it ended. In the seconds after the stabbing, the stadium went from a normal track meet to a crime scene. Bystanders called 911 immediately, and the call captured the panic of people trying to help Metcalf before paramedics could reach him. Coaches, parents, and other students crowded around as emergency responders pushed through the bleachers. Metcalf was transported to a hospital, where he was later pronounced dead. Police didn't have to search far for a suspect. Witnesses at the scene identified Karmelo Anthony to a school resource officer within minutes of the stabbing. When officers located him, he didn't run and he didn't deny what happened. He was taken into custody on the spot, and investigators later described him as cooperative throughout the arrest process. One piece of evidence would go on to shape the entire case: the knife. In the months after the stabbing, a narrative spread online claiming Anthony had been carrying something small, a pocket tool, a folding utility knife, nothing more than what any teenager might have in a backpack. That narrative turned out to be false. When investigators recovered and documented the weapon, it was significantly larger than what was being described on social media. That gap between rumor and reality became a recurring problem for the defense once the case reached trial. Surveillance cameras at the stadium, along with body camera footage from responding officers, captured both the confrontation and its immediate aftermath. None of that footage was shown publicly while the case was active. Cameras weren't permitted inside the courtroom, and the material stayed sealed until after the trial concluded. Once it was released, it became the most detailed public record of what actually happened that day. Within weeks, prosecutors charged Anthony with first-degree murder, a charge carrying a potential sentence of anywhere from 5 years to 99 years or life in prison. He was held initially, then released on a reduced bond and placed on house arrest while the case moved toward trial. Before we get to what happened in that courtroom, drop a comment below. Based on what you know so far, does this sound like self-defense or does it sound like murder? Let us know your verdict before we reveal the real one. More than a year after Austin Metcalf's death, the case finally reached trial in a Collin County courtroom, with Judge John Roach Jr. presiding. By then, Karmelo Anthony was 19, though Texas law allowed him to be tried as an adult for what happened when he was 17. Prosecutor Bill Werski built the state's case around a single idea: proportionality. His argument to the jury was direct. A shove does not justify a knife. He called it plain and simple murder, unjustified by any legal standard of self-defense. To support that, prosecutors brought forward witnesses who were at the meet that day, several of them friends and teammates of Metcalf's, who described the moments leading up to the stabbing and Metcalf's own efforts to defuse the situation before it turned physical. Anthony's defense, led by attorney Mike Howard, took the opposite position. Howard argued that Anthony had been surrounded by members of a rival track team, several of them larger than him, and that he acted out of genuine fear for his safety. It was a self-defense argument built entirely on circumstance, because the defense made a deliberate choice not to put Anthony on the stand. Jurors never heard directly from him. The case had already drawn national attention before it reached trial. Much of it centered on the fact that Anthony is black and Metcalf was white, in a jury that included no black members. That detail fueled commentary and debate far beyond the courtroom, including from public figures weighing in without having seen the evidence presented at trial. The jury was left to decide based on testimony and forensic evidence, not online narrative. Deliberations took less than 3 hours. The jury rejected the self-defense claim and found Anthony guilty of murder. Sentencing followed the same day. Anthony's mother, Kayla Hayes, took the stand and asked the jury for mercy, telling them her son was her firstborn and that she believed he was deeply sorry for what he had done. The defense also argued for a reduced sentence under the legal theory of sudden passion, asking jurors to consider that Anthony acted in the heat of an overwhelming emotional response rather than with calculated intent. The jury rejected that argument as well. Anthony was sentenced to 35 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after serving half that time. Inside the courtroom, the moment was heavy. Hunter Metcalf, Austin's twin brother, appeared in court for the first time during the trial, having been kept out earlier as a potential witness. Judge Roach had warned everyone present to control their emotions before the verdict was read. Anthony's mother wept. His attorney kept an arm around him throughout. The verdict, though, was not the end of this story. Subscribe now, because what happened in the 24 hours after sentencing is going to change how you see this entire case. Less than 24 hours after the verdict, Karmelo Anthony's legal team filed a notice of appeal. Appellate attorneys who followed the case say any appeal is unlikely to challenge the evidence itself. Instead, it would focus on how the trial was conducted, procedural questions, not new facts. Legal analysts have pointed out that the jury reached its decision quickly, which they say reflects a clear read of the evidence rather than any sign the trial was mishandled. In the weeks after, Hunter Metcalf spoke publicly for the first time about losing his twin brother, describing the moment he reached Austin's side after the stabbing and the toll the case has taken on his family since. Frisco Independent School District also issued a statement saying it respected the judicial process and asking its community to continue supporting one another with care. As of now, the appeal is still pending, with no set timeline for a ruling. Anthony remains in custody, eligible for parole, only after serving half of his 35-year sentence. What this case ultimately came down to was a single legal principle. Force has to match force. A confrontation that started over a seat under a tent ended with one teenager dead and another behind bars for decades. And no version of self-defense law in Texas found room to excuse the gap between the two. This case isn't over. If you want to know the moment that appeal ruling comes down, subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear this story.